Hello, and welcome to the Get Your Act Together podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today we have another episode of the agency series. And I would love to introduce you to Laura Kelly. Hello, Laura.
Hello, I'm fist bumping. I'm so excited.
I am so excited to have Laura here today. We have been chatting back and forth about this episode. Laura, tell the good people all about you and your business.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm Laura Kelly. I am the owner and CEO of TulaBooks. So we are a bookkeeping agency, which might be a little, odd. Well, not odd, but normally we think of agencies, I feel like it's, marketing or a VA agency or whatever. And it was funny, Kelly, because I actually DM'd you when you were like putting out your offer for like, oh, I'm trying to interview agency folks. I'm like, I think I'm an agency. I don't know. Because I feel like in my industry, like people don't usually say bookkeeping agency, but when I was like thinking about it more and I've been around that term now more, like I'm like, yeah, I'm an agency. So I'm excited to be here. I'll be sharing more about that. But yeah, so I started TulaBooks. Well, actually, funny story. I've had this LLC for like 13 years. I started moonlighting, doing like QuickBooks help like 13 years ago for one client. And I created the LLC. I created the name back then. And then fast forward to just a couple years ago when I was actually in a spot to really start a business and be an entrepreneur. The name still made sense. And I can talk about where the name came from, but the name still made sense. And I just rolled it forward. And so I've been excited now to actually make TulaBooks a thing. So now TulaBooks is my full-time gig, no longer working full-time, thank God, for other people. So I've been building this small business bookkeeping agency, if you will. So I do have a team. So we'll be talking about that in this episode. But I love what I do. I love who we serve. It just lights me up so much more than in my full-time career that I came from. So anyways, not sure if that was a great bio, but I'm excited to hear. We'll be talking more as we go forward. So
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that it's a bookkeeping agency. Like it's a different kind of agency, right?
yeah.
Why are you an agency? Like, why are you not just a bookkeeper?
Yeah. Okay. So let's start with when I really started taking TulaBooks seriously as an entrepreneur. So I had just left my full-time job, and same as you, Kelly, I had just gone through a due diligence period. I'd helped the company that I was working for full-time to get acquired, and I was managing. So I was their VP of finance. So I was the point person. I was the paperwork out. I did all the numbers, all the due diligence, pulling all the documentation. And also, I was 8 months pregnant.
Oh, wow.
At the end, it was crazy. It was like and with my firstborn, and so I had my baby shower, and literally the next day was the closing. So you can imagine just how crazy and hairy that all was. It was, woo.
I don't know how you did that. Like looking back at this summer, I can't imagine being 8 months pregnant going through all that.
Oh, yeah, it was a thing. But you know what? It was kind of interesting because like everyone knew I was like busting my ass, and obviously everybody knew I was pregnant. So I was like, you know what? They could just give me a free pass, like one evening or something. Like I was like, they probably feel bad for me. Like this is a really good spot to be in, because normally they don't feel bad for you. They're just like, oh, just suck it up, just hustle. But I was like, no, I'm pregnant. So anyways, I got it all done, and I actually, up until the closing, I still didn't even know if I was going to get full-time childcare for my daughter and then go back to work. Like I didn't even know. But once I found out the really nice bonus check that I got from all of that, like once the calculations were done, and it was, because I was part of the leadership team, right? So I had like stock options out the wazoo and whatever. When I knew like the bonus check I was going to get, I was like, peace, like
Outta
we
here.
can make this work for, we looked at our personal finances, and between savings and that nice bonus check, like we could have carried without my salary for a year. So I was like, you know what the heck? I've never taken time off. Let's do this. And I wanted to, do the stay-at-home mom thing and see how that felt. So I did do that. I did that for a couple months. And then I started getting requests from, some of my old corporate contacts, mainly the company that I had just come from. But they were like, "You're Laura, you're not doing anything. Like, why don't you do some hourly work for us?" It's like, well, actually, I'm trying to raise a child here, but no, of course, like I was excited to kind of just do something a little different 3 months
Yeah, like
in.
use your
So
brain again. Yeah.
right,
Be like a smart
exactly,
person, right? Instead of just someone who cleans up like puke
oof,
everywhere and all the things babies
yes.
do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like 3 months in, I kind of had my bearings. So I was like, yeah, maybe I could, get a sitter like a couple hours here and there and like help them out. So it started there. And so TulaBooks started as a really like an hourly virtual CFO situation.
Okay.
And then I started to get more requests. Like they put more on my plate. I got in touch with some other contacts. They had other gigs for me. So within, I think, a period of probably about a year to a year and a half, we actually decided to put my daughter into daycare and I was doing full-time hourly CFO and I was killing it. I was making bank, because
Nice.
like I was making more than my full-time salary because, like a consultant rate, like I was able to charge
Yeah.
hourly. Like, so anyways, that was really sweet. But like pretty quickly into that, I realized, first of all, that's not scalable, right? Because there's only so many hours. And like, did I want to have to constantly worry about, well, what if one of these big retainer clients cycles off and now I have to find another one? And what's that new project going to be? And I don't know. I just didn't want that worry and stress and like everything had to be on me. And like, if I got sick
Yes.
for a week,
Yeah.
what would I do? And I'm sure a lot of the folks you've been talking to like have that kind of situation. And that's why they moved to more of this agency style model. So when I was thinking about the business, also during this time, I was getting some requests for like small business bookkeeping. And I was like, well, I can't charge my hourly CFO rate to do bookkeeping. So I got this idea. I had a friend of mine that I worked with at that last company. Her time was kind of about to wrap up there. Like she was going to be cycling off and she was a part-time person there. And I thought, gosh, what if I brought her under the TulaBooks umbrella? She could do the work because she was kind of like an accounting clerk kind of person. What if she could service those small business clients? I'll still keep the CFO stuff. We'll see how that goes. Like maybe like half time I can do that, and then the other half I can try and build this bookkeeping thing. So you can guess the rest was history. Like I ended up cycling out a lot more of that CFO stuff and just moved towards bringing on a team of bookkeepers, which I have 3 now, and we service about 15 monthly clients. And so now this is now the full-time thing, and I really don't have much CFO stuff going on. It's really just kind of like add-on packages to my monthly clients that I have. And of course, that pivot didn't happen overnight. I mean, that's been over the last year and a half, probably. But that's kind of all transitioned. And
I think that's
certainly,
really
I went from
important to mention too, because a lot of people think, oh,
yeah,
well, I have a new offer and I'm just going to fill my books with it, or I'm going to change everything today. And I
right,
think, like, yeah, that's great that you said that because things have to change and you still have to pay for things and, feed your kids. And that, yeah, it's not
yeah.
overnight, people.
No, no. And of course, like at the time when I got like sick of doing the CFO stuff, I wanted to burn it to the ground and make
Yep.
it so that it was like an overnight change. But I really had to sit on my hands and say, okay, this is going to be a slow transition. We will get there. And I love the way it ended up happening. So it was awesome. And I love it. It is a lot less profitable, right? So I'm sure we're going to kind of get into that. Like,
Yeah.
what are the ticky tacky numbers and stuff? Because, of
Yeah.
course, like
Well,
before I was charging hourly and everything was going to me. And now I have all these software and, I have team. And like, so it's different. But now it can be infinitely scalable, truly. So that's where the excitement for me comes in is like, okay, I'm at a certain revenue and profit level now, but I can really take it somewhere. I just need to, again, sit on my hands and kind of wait and just let the clients come and just allow it to scale over time.
all right. So let's go into those numbers because I'm always fascinated by numbers. We're numbers
Sure.
girls.
Yeah.
And I love the talk of it because I think so many people get into agencies, they do not charge what they're supposed to, or they don't charge enough to cover all the things, and then they make $0 or they make $1 for everything that's going on, and they're managing and they're working on these hours. So how do you kind of structure this? Like, how do you? I mean, you can tell the numbers if you don't have to tell your real numbers if you don't want to. How do you structure the pay for the people? How do you structure what clients are doing? Like, how does the money of it all work? And how do you figure out how to make a profit on it all?
Oh, I
That's a
know.
lot
That's a
in one
big
question.
Yeah, it's a big question. And it, like we've been saying, it's really evolved over time. I did not have an answer for that when I started out. I kind of had an idea, like I knew what I was going to be paying my bookkeepers, a certain hourly rate. So then I kind of just came up with an equivalent hourly rate that I would want to charge the client, that I thought, okay, if we, which I do monthly packages, so I don't charge hourly, but I
Got
bake
it.
into the package like an assumed amount of hours that we're going to put into that. And, we have written into our contracts that we can, review scope every, 3, 6 months or whatever. So if it turned out that it was over scope of what I kind of anticipated, we can go back and reprice.
That's a great
Um,
thing because people think they get locked into something for the rest of their lives, that they're working 40 hours when they thought 20. And yeah, that's great.
yeah, yeah, totally. And also we've been working with some proposal software that we use that really kind of breaks down very in detail, like you get X number of transactions, this is supporting you up to X amount of annual revenue. So like when any of those levers really materially change for the client, we can go back and reprice, because we can say, well, your revenue has doubled, of course our bookkeeping is going to increase, because that just brings more complexity, brings more transactions, it brings more, maybe we need to do journal entries now and we didn't have to before, or whatever it is. Like the work grows as the business grows.
Yeah.
So but it took us a while to get there too. But yeah, so I kind of just came up with, again, like what would those profit margins look like if I pay my bookkeepers X and I charge the client Y approximately per hour. So that's usually kind of what I shoot for. And now I'm trying to kind of grow that hourly rate a little bit with clients as I go forward, because we're adding more layers, which means the clients are getting more value. Like now we actually have usually two bookkeepers on their account, and originally it was just one person servicing them, and now we've got like our core bookkeeper that's doing the main transaction entry stuff, and now we've got someone who's really doing that oversight piece, and then they still have access to me too, so like they're getting
That's a lot.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting more. Um, so the way I kind of gut check it now, because it's really hard to get into the nitty gritty to see like what everybody's profit margin is per hour and whatnot. But what I like to do is just look at, okay, what was my top line revenue, and then what did I pay my team? And I try to keep the team costs between like 30 to 35% of my top line revenue, and then I kind of know I'm in a good spot. Like that's a good metric for us to kind of keep track of. And some clients, the team costs are going to be more than 30%, but then other ones, they might be lower because maybe we've just gotten really efficient with it, or whatever it is. So like they do kind of balance each other out. They're not every client is just 30%.
Yeah.
So
But I think like having that notion in your head, because you have to pay your team, you've got to pay
yeah,
for all the software, right?
yeah,
All the
yeah,
doing books it needs software, and you have to do all the
lots of
things.
it.
And then you have
Yeah.
to make money as the manager of the team and the owner of the business and taking the risk and all that stuff. So I think that's something I think I say in every podcast, listeners, is that you have to
Mhm.
get paid for these things. This is not,
Yes.
it's not charity. Uh, if it was, it would just be
Right.
called a hobby. But like, that's a big thing to me. I want to make sure people know that they have to pay things.
Right.
And then they get
Right.
to make money to pay their families or their bills and things like that. Um, how do you pay your people? Is that a retainer as well? Do they get, like, you're on a package with a client, do you pay them like a flat kind of package rate as well? Or are you paying them hourly? How are you paying them?
So they're all employees. So
Oh,
part-time,
totally different.
part-time
Back
employees.
first.
Yeah. Right. I know. I know. Well, there's lots of ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
But when I was starting this out, something about the contractor thing, I just didn't like it. I like when I brought on Janine, my lead bookkeeper. She's the gal that worked with me at my last full-time job. So she's been with me the longest. I've known her the longest. We've known each other for like 6 years. Um, when I brought her on, it never made sense to be a contractor. Like she was always just going to be a part-time employee. So she tracks her hours, and then we pay her hourly. And she kind of has a target of like the number of hours per week she wants to get at, and she normally lands right around that. And so then I can kind of budget for that. So then it's like, well, how many? I just need to make sure that I'm filling her with the right amount of clients on her plate to make those numbers make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So But, I do understand it might be simpler if I had a flat retainer and then a flat payment. Then you always are guaranteed that your profit margins are there. But I
I think
don't,
it depends on the work though. Like if you're doing a
yeah,
monthly thing where it's like a monthly maintenance, you're doing things every month, you kind of can see the scope of it. It's not
yeah,
like you're coming in and saying, "Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do." Like, right, you need either a limit of hours or you need scope in some way. So if you have that scope, I think
right.
like that seems pretty reasonable to me
Yeah, yeah.
what you're doing.
Um, yeah, so I guess there is some risk there. And that's where we have gotten into some issue with clients where we have almost been underwater because I just way underestimated the scope, and that was
Yeah.
actually before I had that proposal software that really helped us price like line item by line item. If I had quoted that client, over a year ago with that software, they would have been paying triple. like
Oh my goodness. What software
so,
is
but
it?
it was so early. So we use a program called Go Proposal, and it's specifically for our industry. It's for bookkeepers and
That's
accountants.
really cool.
Yeah, so like it has a price point for like transaction limits, number of bank accounts the client has, what's their annual revenues, like those types of like big markers and stuff. And it's great for us too because we also like every package has to be so custom because, yeah, base bookkeeping that includes the same types of things. But then like some folks, they want us to manage their accounts payable. They want us to manage their payroll. There's lots of other add-ons. So for our industry, I did try using Dubsado and like some of those types of tools, but I was having to customize it so much. And with Go Proposal, I just say, yep, they want payroll, they want AP, they want, 1099 management, whatever. And we just tick, 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 and then it generates a price. It's the best thing ever. So for our
That sounds
industry,
amazing. I
that's,
can't make
yeah,
a Dubsado work either. Like I love
right.
systems and I love learning new tech, but for some reason it's such a block in my head that I just refuse. I can't make it work. so
Yeah, yeah,
that yeah, this thing sounds awesome, especially like you're ticking all those boxes. I'm like, yes, I do all those things. I've done
right.
1099, so I don't, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So and I love that you are pricing it for what they are getting, not just, oh well, I'm doing bookkeeping. Like, no, these are the services you're going to get. This is the price for those services. This is the scope. And I think that is so important, especially it's important for any business, but I think it's so important for agencies because you need to know what's going on. You need to be able to schedule that work out for the team. And I think it's way less chaos
Hmm.
than, hey, we just have to do some work today. Right? Like,
Right.
who's going to do all this stuff? I don't know what's going to happen. Like, raise your hand if you can do something today. Like, that becomes a lot of chaos. And I think that's a lot more management. So if you can be, kind of having these packages where you know what's going to happen and you
Yep.
can schedule that out a little bit better. I mean,
Totally.
how are you dealing with capacity? Are you at the point now where you can figure out what the packages are to know how many people should be on that thing or how many clients one of your bookkeepers can handle? Like, how do you figure out who gets the capacity? Or yeah,
Ooh, yeah, I think we're kind of at that inflection point now where we're really going to need to get a handle on that. Like I've had these three team members now. Well, the newest one, I think she just joined at the beginning of this year, so she's going on almost like 8, 9 months with us now. But the other two have been with me like over a year, like since I really pivoted into this like bookkeeping world. Um, so it's just kind of worked out that like new clients come in, it's like, oh, Janine, do you have the capacity for another one? Okay, great. So it's just been like,
yeah,
can we add to your plate? But I think we're finally getting to that point where it's like, especially now that I've put that structure in place where we've got our core bookkeeper and our lead bookkeeper, like that was new for us in the last couple months. And that's been working out really, really great. So now the tricky part's going to be like, okay, well, the lead bookkeeper could probably handle more accounts than the core because the core person's doing like really most of the
doing all the
day-to-day
things. Yeah.
legwork, transaction stuff, that kind of a thing. So now I'm going to have to figure out like, well, how many can the lead have versus the
Mm.
core? So I might need to have like two cores for every one lead. So now it's like a whole new world. So I will say I don't have all that figured out right now.
Yeah.
But I probably will need to hire maybe a core person, maybe in Q4 if we onboard a couple new clients now. We might be in that spot. So, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, because I'm always interested in that because I have a long-term team, right? Like everyone, the newest person was March, two people in March because I liked them
Okay.
both.
Yeah.
I interviewed them. But other than that, everyone's been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And they kind of know what they got to do.
Yeah.
We can figure it out. They have their own clients. So I don't have any master plan of like checking how many hours everyone has each week. And like,
Yeah.
so I'm always kind of curious as to how other people do that, because I haven't had to do that yet, to
Right.
any grand plan. So it's more,
Yeah.
everyone kind of handles stuff. Like
And
everyone
that
knows
is
what we're supposed to
exactly
do.
where we are right now. Like
Yeah.
we all know everything that's going on. And yeah, like I said, with the switch to do the core and the lead, like that kind of shifted things. So now we're kind of letting the dust settle on that. And we implemented another software. So I guess because we'll probably get to this in our conversation anyway, so I'll just bring it up. Our project management tool that we've shifted to, because we were using Asana, like we had projects in Asana that had, templated like recurring tasks, like, download the bank transactions and download the statements and blah, blah, blah. But we have since moved to another specific tool in our industry. It's called Keeper, and it is amazing. We are obsessed with it. We just started doing this over the last month, and it's meant for our industry. So all of the recurring tasks like are already in there, and it pulls in reports from QuickBooks. We can make changes to transactions in Keeper, and it integrates it back to QuickBooks. I mean, it's just like heck with Asana. Like Asana's out of here.
Forget that. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is like nerd level and I love it.
Yes,
I
I
was just
knew
so
you were gonna
excited.
love this.
I'm like, this is so awesome.
I know. The efficiency is like, it's so great. And it gives all of us the visibility to see, okay, like where's everybody at with their July close? Like who have we closed out? Who are we still working on? Like, and then, it also has like a client portal. So we can actually take transactions from their books that we need clarity on. I'm sure you're familiar with this. Like, I need a receipt. Who's this vendor? Like, what is this for?
What did you buy
category. Exactly. So then we post those up into their client portal, and they can log into it either on their desktop or their phone, and then they provide comments, and then it goes back to us, and then we can update the transaction in Keeper, and it's so
I'm writing this
so
down
great.
right now.
Yeah,
I don't,
it's
I
so
mean,
cool.
I don't know that I need it really, but I want it because it seems cool. This
Yeah,
is what happens.
exactly.
Like, this is like nerd level because it's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, I'm going to go look that software up. Like, what? Go to bed.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, that sounds really cool. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like those random transactions that, you're like, I don't know what you bought. And they're like, oh, it's on Amazon. I'm like, I know you buy a lot of things on Amazon.
Yeah,
What did you
what
buy?
is it?
You got to tell me what's going on over here.
Yeah,
That's me.
Target and Amazon, those are the biggest culprits right there.
Oh, and it
Oh
was
my
like
goodness.
75 transactions, and he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's great. Yeah. I'm
Exactly.
having this conversation in my head. It's a frequent one with one of my clients. So,
Oh, that's cool. Oh, so you do bookkeeping with your clients too. That's awesome.
well, I personally don't anymore. I started out
Okay.
doing, I started out with a couple of my clients doing accounts receivable. So invoicing,
Ah,
tracking
yes,
payments,
yes.
that kind of stuff. And then, we brought on Kristen, on my team as a bookkeeper. She's fantastic. And
Awesome.
she comes in and does like the real bookkeeping. Like I was
Got it.
finance, so I don't know how to like do journals very well. It takes me a lot of thought to like figure out where all the things are going to go.
Which one's a debit and a credit?
Yeah, like damn it, which way, how does this, what count am I, is it accounts receivable, like where am I putting this? So I leave all that to
Exactly.
her now. She makes all the books pretty. She's one of those bookkeepers that you she can go in and like fix a big mess, like,
Yes.
oh, I haven't looked at my
Yes.
books in a year. She comes in and like fixes it all. So I've left that to her. So yes, we do it, but I do not do it because
That is so cool. Well, yeah, she needs to start using Keeper then, because if she's managing multiple clients, like that's where it's at. It's really
so
awesome.
Kristen, if you're listening to this podcast, here you go. It
Yes.
sounds amazing.
That's very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about how I guess you're structured. You have 3 employees, right? Part-time
Yeah.
employees. And
Yep.
then what are you doing now that you're getting out of the CFO stuff? Are you just managing the agency? Are you in client work still?
Yeah, good question. I almost feel like I need to pull up my calendar. 'Cause it's like, what do I do? Well, yeah, so I do work on, marketing and visibility, like having podcast episodes like this, like that kind of stuff. I take sales calls, of course. So it's marketing and sales 100% on me. I didn't mention I do have a VA, actually through Sadie Prestridge's
Ah,
agency.
a former
We're
podcast guest.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, my VA is totally amazing, and Sadie is just like everything she touches turns to gold. So I have a strong support system there. So she helps me with So I'll like every week we kind of go through, and we've been kind of in like SOP mode recently, like trying to get things updated and trying to get things really like off my plate. But that means I need to have a really solid SOP so that my VA can actually go and execute on the things.
Yes.
So I've been really focused on that recently, like with moving to Keeper and doing the change with the team members. I've just really been in the mindset of like trying to be that removable CEO kind of situation. So yeah, so thinking about SOP stuff, trying to think what else do I do?
Are you out of the CFO business altogether, basically?
Well, okay, yeah. So in terms of the day-to-day client work, pretty much not in any of that. Really, like our 15 clients that we're managing, I'm not doing those really.
That's
I'm
amazing.
sitting on top. I'm doing like, of course, like I do the month-end reviews. Like I review everybody's financials and stuff, but I'm not keying in transactions. I'm not categorizing anything. I'm not doing bank recs. So that's all on the team. So really, I just kind of I review their financials at the end of the month. And then for some clients, we've been doing, you know, like 60-minute debrief calls. But actually, we're starting to roll out. So this was kind of exciting. We used to have it as an add-on that they could do meetings with me either monthly or quarterly. But I've just been realizing that because I talk about this all day long, like I feel like our value as bookkeepers, it's not just, oh, we do your transactions, we submit your financials, and then that's it. We want to be your numbers translators. Like there's so much data in your numbers that's hiding there that you
Yeah.
don't even know it's there. Like how profitable is XYZ income stream? Or are you spending too much on, your software packages or like whatever it is? So I want to be that numbers translator. So we're actually rolling out for our clients 30-minute monthly debrief calls. Anytime they want them, we're going to submit their financials and then we're going to say, here's Laura's Calendly. Go ahead and schedule 30 minutes with her because I just want to get more touch points with them and
Yeah.
just really get them comfortable and provide that value month after month instead of just maybe meeting once a quarter, which by the time the quarter is over, like it's not enough. It's not enough touch points to really influence how the business owner can make better decisions going forward if they're looking back 3 months.
Well, yeah, because you're
Um,
so far removed from those things by then, right? Like that's
exactly.
like people who look at things only at the end of the year. Like it's already over. You
Right.
can't change it. You can't adjust it. You can't say, oh, we're really behind on a thing, or we got to cut costs here. Like having that, like knowing your numbers and being engaged with that, I think that's fantastic. Like that monthly
Yeah.
check in, because
Yeah.
I'm a numbers nerd in a way, but
Yeah.
I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not a
Hmm.
CFO,
Yeah.
and some of these numbers I don't know. I would love to have
Right.
someone sit there and be like, "Hi, so this is you did this, you did that, that means this." And that
Exactly.
translator, that's a great idea. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. So we're starting to roll that out here in Q. Are we in Q3? Yeah, we're in Q3. It's
I don't
crazy.
even know anymore.
I know this year has just been insane. But yeah, so we're starting to roll that out. We have the new client portal and Keeper, so like lots of fun changes are coming to our clients now inside of TulaBooks. So we're really jazzed about that. So yeah, so I will have those meetings on my calendar, but probably not everybody's going to take me up on it every single month. And some folks might still just get around to it once a quarter, maybe when they have time. And if they opt out of that, monthly 30-minute debrief, what we'll do then is we'll just send them a quick Loom video of like, okay, here's your financials. We'll just call out a couple things for them to kind of like keep an eye out on. But really the value is in that chat, because I can just ask them, how's your business going? Because yeah, I can look at your numbers and kind of see where you're at, but like I need sometimes more context to really be able to like advise you and like
Yeah.
all those kinds of things. So
And like as a person who has questions but doesn't want to bother my accountant with them or something like that, I'm like,
right.
do I do this? Should I be looking at that? Like trying to plan for things in my business and thinking like, what is the best way to do this here? Should I
Yeah,
buy this or not buy this right now? Or that, I
exactly.
mean, it's so valuable to have that knowledge because I have more experience with it than most, I think, but I still need help. So I can only imagine people who don't like numbers at all and
At
never want to
all.
talk about them. And
Mhm.
then they have questions and they're like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
They don't know
Totally.
what, right? Most
Yeah.
people that I've met try to avoid all numbers if possible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at least like they've been getting the peace of mind from us knowing like their books are all handled, but I really want to start adding just that extra value because I talk about that all the time and I'm like, well, these quarterly meetings just aren't cutting it, you know?
Yeah.
And actually not everybody has even opted in. It was an add-on package. So we've
Okay.
kind of rejiggered that a little bit. Now we're going to be including a 30-minute debrief every month. And now what I'm going to be doing is adding on even more value add CFO services if they want to opt into those, like creating an annual budget and updating that, monthly or quarterly or whatever that is. So that'll be the extra kind of CFO stuff, but we're just going to be including those 30-minute calls because that's where it's at. And that's where my mission and values, like it's the numbers translator. And I can't really provide that if I don't meet with clients every month,
Yeah. And like, that's going to be the thing that sets you apart, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to offer those things and to be like, no, we're going to take care of you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
love
they
it.
can get because they're VA or an intern or something can do the bookkeeping. Like that's a dime a dozen. So yeah, that's really where the value add's going to be.
I love it. So how are you picking your people? How are you choosing your people when you hire them, and how are you getting them ready to be given client work? That's a big thing with agency owners is being scared to let their people touch their stuff or their client stuff, like giving that kind of control away. How are you bringing on people so that you can prepare them for that?
Oh, this is also something we're figuring out.
I think it's always a
So
process, isn't it?
yeah, well, so I mentioned my first hire, Janine. She was a known entity because I had already worked with her at my last full-time job. So that was easy. Like we were using at that old job though, we weren't using, I don't think we were using QuickBooks Online, and now like pretty much our entire business is QuickBooks Online at TulaBooks. So there was a little bit of training there, but I knew she was going to be able to pick that up like super quick. So training her and bringing her into the fold was relatively easy. And fortunately, also, I didn't have a ton of SOPs or stuff documented back then either, but it was like her and I just working together, like, all the time. So hers was kind of like through osmosis, right? Like from the beginning. And then the subsequent hires that I made, one was somebody that I found her by doing a search, right? So I used I don't know if you're familiar with Jazz HR for recruiting.
I know.
They were actually, so I'm based in Pittsburgh. They started here in Pittsburgh. Now I think they're based out of Boston. They got, VC money and all the things. They blew up, which was awesome. But anyway, so I use them. It's like an applicant tracking tool, and they post your job out to like Indeed and LinkedIn and like all the things. I basically got like 100 bookkeeping candidates in the span of a week, literally.
Oh, wow.
So then it was like filtering through all of them and all that
Yes.
stuff. And, but yeah, so I found her through a traditional search process. And then I was bringing her on specifically for 2 large clients. So her and I just worked really closely together for a while. That was a bigger training lift for me, because we just had to she was taking on clients that had much higher needs than everybody else we had worked with. They weren't the typical just, oh yeah, monthly bookkeeping client. They were like, they're a VIP. So we had to really be cautious and really, so basically I kind of worked on building out the SOPs for her, and I would do tons of Loom videos and write-ups and all of that. And then she would take it, she would read them, she would watch them, and then she'd go and do them. And then she'd come back with questions. So that was kind of the iterative process that I went through with her to bring her on board. So now she's just kind of off and running with those larger clients. And so she's doing great. So she doesn't really have a ton of questions because we've nailed down that process. Now with my third gal, she was kind of a friend of mine. She's actually, all my gals are local to me here in Pittsburgh. It just actually turned out that way. Even the gal that I hired from the recruiting process, and it was
wow.
it was a national search, but it turns out she lives like 40 minutes away from me, which is really cool. But yeah, my other gal was kind of a friend that I had known for a long time, and it was kismet. It just made sense. She was kind of looking to get back into the accounting field, and I needed some extra help. So she kind of came on board, and then with her, so all of my trainings have been very different, but when she came on, Janine, my lead, she really kind of trained her a lot. And I had already had a library of some videos. So it was like sharing stuff with her here and there. So it was a combo of the videos I had done, and then Janine did some of the training. So who knows with my fourth person when that happens, like, I don't know, but I think like the ideal is that I'm going to be continuing to work on all the SOP stuff, getting an SOP library that's searchable and accessible by everybody. We're definitely still working on that. So any
It's a
suggestions you have on
process,
that?
right? It's
Oh, it's
always a
huge.
process because there's going to be a new thing you're going to want to write an SOP about in a year. Like
Oh,
it's just, yeah. I
every
mean,
day practically.
yeah, I mean, so many people are like, "Well, I need to have this all finished." I'm like, "You'll never have this finished." It's like it's an
Yeah.
ongoing process. You have to make sure they're updated if things change, or yeah, it kind of is. And I think that the best way to kind of get that going is the way you're doing it, which is trying to get the knowledge out of your head,
Yep.
documenting it for that person, and then the next person comes in and they have all these videos and all these SOPs that are already made, and it's kind of an iterative process where you just kind of keep doing that.
It gets easier. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not like you're no one as a solopreneur says, I'm gonna sit down and write everything down right now. Like you don't have time for that, right?
It's
But
very time
it's
consuming.
very
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's a whole service with us. Like we will come in and do that for you because
Right.
there's not a lot of time, especially when you're hustling in the beginning, and you're trying to figure all the things out and you had a kid and another kid and a husband and another, like all these things. You are
Hmm.
not going to sit down and write 100 SOPs. So like that's why we ended up having that as a service, separate service for that same reason because it's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's so handy when you have the next person to come in. You're like, oh, I have all these videos. Here you go. Go watch them. And
Yeah.
it's a lot less training after that.
Yeah, so when I onboarded with Sadie and her agency, we did like a whole system setup with her, and she helped me build out a lot of my core SOPs.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of them have changed drastically since Sadie and I worked on them together, but that's fine. I have the structure now. I understand what needs to be included in an SOP, all of that.
Yes.
So then I can kind of take it and run with it. But so she helped with a lot of those core things, and then now it's more of the client specific stuff and just figuring out what's the best way to like store them and organize them. And like at first we had like a master Google Doc for every client. I don't really like that anymore. Like, so I think we're going to be getting away from that. And I think eventually we're going to be leveraging some kind of software, maybe like Notion or something that can be a library that's like, again, highly searchable, tags, with clients and, all of that. So it's like easily like findable and that kind of thing. So that is like that's probably a big project for me in the second half of this year, is just kind of focusing on that. Now that we have Keeper in place, like that was huge. I think that I'm going to be focusing on SOPs and probably hiring somebody the second half of the year too. So starting to think about the onboarding for a team member again, because I've only done it. I mean, I really only consider having done it twice, because like when Janine came on again, it was just like osmosis.
You're like, I
It
know
wasn't.
you.
Yeah, it wasn't a true onboarding, but with my other two gals, it really was. So I do have somewhat of a process, and Sadie really helped me with that. Like, she did because we used Slack and other tools, so she did I don't, they're not really SOPs, but they're kind of like our best practices when we use Slack. So she
Yeah.
like helped
Yeah.
me with the template for that. So that was really helpful to be like, hey, new team member, read this best practice document, and here's a couple of training videos on Slack if you've never used it, kind of thing.
We have the
So
same
that was
thing for
really
teamwork.
helpful.
Like this is how you get in, this is how you use it. Because teamwork is more of an agency software, but and a lot of people haven't used it. So,
Yeah,
here's how to use these things instead of me sitting there going, okay, click on the list and like whatever it is. It's so much easier. They can do it in
doing a
their own
live
time.
training. Exactly.
And then they'd
Totally.
also, if they forget, they can just look it up and they don't have to come bother me. And they don't feel like, oh God, I've got to bother them again.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's for like those basic things when you're in the beginning and you're like, I have so much information coming in at me right now and I don't remember where everything is.
Yeah, again, like having it be like a searchable kind of
Yeah.
database.
We have a big dashboard. I build it in Drive just because I don't want to have to pay user fees for every person. Like we had
Yeah.
stuff in teamwork and that, but I was like, I have to pay user fees for every person that comes in to see this. So we have these dashboards built out in Drive, and it makes it searchable and it's under categories and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Like
Which
Google
makes it,
Drive, you mean?
yeah, we
Okay.
build it in Drive, and then like you can always share it with any contractor that comes in. If you had like someone who needed to come in and help you, you could share it without having to pay for the user fee for the teamwork or the whatever every month.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Which was helpful to me. Like if I had someone come in for a project or someone who only works once in a while on something, they could still have access, and it has links to everything and the SOP. So everything, like I try to build these things so that if I get hit by a bus, Gwen, my right hand, could go there and be like, okay, I can figure out from here where everything is.
Yeah,
and everything's linked from there. Yeah, because you need people to be able to find things. Like having
totally.
SOPs is great, but if no one can find them when they need them, then it's not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Like right now, they're kind of in a bunch of different places. So yeah, that's going to be
Yeah,
my
the centralizing of it.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm always worried that I'm gonna get like sick, like COVID and all that kind of stuff. Like, what if I get COVID and I'm sick and some my clients need something? Like, each of my clients now have the dashboards that we've built out as well, so that we can, the team can go in and the same thing. Like when someone has come in that is new to the team or new to that client, they go to there and they can find everything in one place.
Yeah.
So highly
That's awesome.
recommend centralized, whatever you want to call it, a hub, a dashboard, or whatever. Uh, yeah, for sanity. And so you can go on
Exactly.
vacation and they can fund things.
Yeah. Again, to be that removable
Yeah.
CEO if
Yeah.
sickness, because that's a real thing. We did just, we got over COVID probably about a month and a half
Oh.
ago. I mean, it was fine, but it still took the whole family out, and it's like,
Hmm.
and then we're like, no childcare for 10 days. So like it impacts things. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
even things like that, or choosing to actually take a vacation. That's a
Leave.
novel
Yes.
idea. Maybe I'll actually do that at some point.
Yeah. I still fight myself on that. I still bring my computer places that I
Yes.
probably shouldn't. But I'm working on it.
Yes.
All right. So what makes your agency different than any of the other agencies, any of the booking keeping agencies? What's different about you guys?
Well, I was gonna say, well, we do bookkeeping, which is like not a typical like agency, I guess, but I can't say that because of course there are other bookkeeping businesses that are operating the same way as me they have team, it's not just like a solopreneur bookkeeper kind of situation. Um, I don't know. I know a lot of folks do leverage more independent contractors versus employees, and I think it was kind of I think an employee relationship was more in line with my values. That sounds weird. I hope that doesn't sound like uppity or something, but it
No,
was
not at
like
all.
I kind of wanted more of that long term relationship.
Yeah.
I wanted them to really feel like part of the team, and
Hmm.
not like just not that all contractors were disposable, but it felt more like a
Yeah.
permanent kind of relationship. So I don't know, that might be a little different.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I don't think that like saying that because we were talking, you are one of the few that I have interviewed so far that have employees. And I think that there is definitely a mentality that if you are not entrepreneurial, you want to be an employee.
right,
So being a contractor is like a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like there are certain people that they don't want to be a contractor. They want to be an employee. So I don't think that
right,
either one is wrong. I think it's the situation you have and the people that you have. Like I have people that want to build their businesses. They don't want to be my employee because they have
right.
other things going. So I think it's just, I don't think it's wrong either way.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of made me a little nervous. A little bit like it could be a flight risk for that person, but
Yep.
also I think the way that we service our clients, I wanted that bookkeeper, not to say that we'll never have turnover, but I really wanted to have like this is their stable person and they can go to them with a question. They don't have to worry about, oh, well, Susie Smith's contractor only works from like 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Tuesday, Thursdays. You know what I mean? Like I wanted them
Yeah.
to also I wanted to be able to dictate their hours to a certain extent because I wanted them to be able to be available during business hours because I knew we were going to have meetings with the client and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's what kind of drove all of those things really drove my decision. And I just feel really comfortable with it because again, we're in this together and I feel like I'm building this company with
Yeah.
employees. I don't know. It feels cool. I
No,
like
totally. I totally get it.
it.
What do you
Yeah, it
think is the
helps me
reason?
feel more like a CEO too. So,
What do you think is the reason your team um, stays? Like, why do you have such low turnover?
yeah. Well, I think to your point earlier, like they want to be bookkeepers. They don't want to be too client facing. I mean, they do like client meetings with me, but like they don't want to lead those client calls. They don't want to find clients. Like they're not. So part of that is like they want to do the grunt work bookkeeping. They love that. They want to be behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So they're like you said, they're never going to want to go out and like steal my clients and go start their own business. But I feel like I don't know. I feel I highly value them, and I tell them that all the time, and
Yeah.
I provide them lots of training opportunities too. Like I just sent two of them through like the QuickBooks certification training, like on
Oh,
my dime
nice.
kind of thing, so they like clocked their hours and they built me for that time. So they know they've got lots of like training opportunities. And I'm always like teaching them new things. Like a lot of what Janine knows about accounting was from what I've taught her over the last, 6, 7 years or whatever. So I think we have a really good relationship, and I don't know. I think they enjoy working with me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and we try
I
to keep
mean,
it fun. So
that kind of culture, just like you're valued, you want to come to work, you get to do the work you want. Like that's it,
yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I love it. Okay. So what what do you love about running an agency?
Well, I love that more and more I am becoming more removable, right? I mean, my team is really kind of running the show. So if I need to step away because of COVID or like a week-long vacation or something, I don't have to worry about checking in on client XYZ because my team has it handled. Like the combination of my bookkeeping team plus my VA and all of that, like it's built this life for me that like yeah, I do work 4 solid days a week, but if I needed to not work those days, like it's possible, it's very feasible, and if I wanted to scale back tomorrow and just not take any more sales calls and not onboard any new clients, like I could just coast, we could just do this thing. Now I want to grow it, so like I'm putting in time for marketing and sales and all that kind of stuff. But what I love about the structure is that um, I'm empowering team. They're doing the work, so I can be removable if and when I need to be. And it takes a little bit of that pressure off. Like this compared to the hourly CFO stuff, like that was stressful. So much pressure on me. I had to be there to deliver, and if I didn't book those hours, I didn't get paid.
Right.
Like,
And if you
so yeah,
personally didn't book those hours, like that's the thing,
right.
right? And that's why
I
I mean,
had
when
to
it was
show
just
up.
me, yep,
Yep.
you had to
Mhm.
show up. It didn't matter if you were sick, you had to show up because you had to get paid. And if you were sick and you wanted to stay in bed, you
Yep.
lost money. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, what do you think is the hardest part of running an agency?
Yeah, the hardest part is that my tendency is to sometimes feel like I'm the best one to do certain things. Not so much with the client work. Like I've gotten like the client work's off my plate, but I think I have had trouble systematizing the other processes like client onboarding and how I do sales and proposals. Like that is all stuff that I could totally make clockwork and hand off to my VA, for example. And I think I've had some resistance against that because I have that syndrome of thinking I'm the only one that can do it, which is completely and utterly false. Like, my VA is amazing, and if only I could just empower her and just spend the time to get that crap out of my head and onto paper. And I think the other thing too is like really committing to the flow, because I feel like sometimes I do things differently like every time and I don't know why. Like it should just be I
To
think
pick one
maybe
way.
I don't know. I think maybe it's because like maybe I'm on a sales call and someone maybe throws a just a small wrench into things that kind of changes the process, and then I'm like, well, shoot. Do I force them into my process, or do I make a new thing and allow them to go through it their way? You know what I mean? Like, so I think I have a little bit of that people pleasing in me as well. So that makes it hard to make some of these like processes totally just smooth and be able
Yeah.
to hand them off, you know? Does
I
that
I
make
do know. I was
sense?
sitting here making funnels at 10 o'clock last night
Oh,
because
yes.
I wanted it a certain way. Was it fine? Sure. But like I have to like there are still certain things that like yes, I could give client work away much easier now. And I've gotten over
Yes.
that hump. That took me a long time to like trust people touching my client work. Now I'm like, yep, cool, you guys got it. But like now it's the sales, the marketing, what would I
Uh-huh.
say? Right. My
Uh-huh.
husband, my poor husband who edits this podcast, wants to write a blurb about something. I'm like, that's not the way I'd say it. And he's like, I know, I'm not you. Like that is the hard part. That
Exactly.
like so I feel like what is it, new level, same devil, different devil? I can never get a saying right. I don't know what it
Oh,
is.
I don't know. I don't know.
When you level up, you have like the things
It's
that
the
you
new devil.
I don't know what it is. someone's going to laugh at me for this, but I can never get sayings out ever. But like you get to a place and you're like, oh, I figured out how to get there. Like I figured out how to get over that. Like I can give my client work away. And then you get to the next level and you're like, okay, I don't want to give my stuff away. That has been the hardest thing that I've had. And then hiring someone to help me with my stuff. And I'm like, but I don't want you to touch my stuff now. So it happens over and over again. You keep hitting that kind of block over and over again, like as you grow. So yeah.
And I feel like that just like struck a chord with me with my clients, because I feel like their finances, that is one of those ticky tacky things for them, or sticky things, I should say. That's like, they are afraid to let that person in to see how they're managing their finances, so that is a hard thing, I think, for people to outsource. But once they let go of that, though, I think they'll see like, whew, there's so much freedom on the other side of that. Just again, like peace of mind, knowing that it's all being taken care of. And the fact that even if they have messiness, that's okay, because we're going to come in and be able to help advise you to get out of the messiness.
Yes.
So that's the thing, they just have to let go.
Like the guilt, I think a lot of people come with, they're like, oh, it's such a mess, I don't want to show you. And I'm like, well, it's not going to get me better unless you show me. Right?
Exactly.
Like, you're not doing this great. That's okay. We're not judging you. Like, we're not all sitting behind, like, there's no like Slack channel where we all make fun of you for not having
right.
Like, that's not how it works. We just want to help.
Yep.
So Laura, thank you so much for being here today on the podcast. I love talking numbers all day and talking new tech. This has been so fun for me. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm most active on the social platforms on Instagram. So you can find me at TulaBooks.co. So we usually have like 2 to 3 posts going up every week with like little QuickBooks tidbits, or just things to look out for in your bookkeeping and things like that. And occasionally, if I have the energy, I'll go on stories. I won't guarantee that. But otherwise, definitely check out my website, www.tulabooks.co. And I'm all about one-to-one connection. So my call to action is book a call. Get on that call with me, because I feel like, especially in my industry with numbers and things that are scary, like just talking to me, I think you'll get that feeling of like, oh, she can do this. This is okay. We can figure this out. So I'm all about, let's get on a call. Let's get on a coffee chat, no pressure, no pitch, none of that. But I just want to hear like, what's keeping you up at night in terms of your finances? And maybe we can help, or maybe we're not the best fit. Maybe you actually need more of a tax accountant at this time, which is not us. So I can make a referral. But I love connecting with people and helping them feel like, again, it's all figure outable and it's all going to be okay.
I love it. Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming today, and we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you have an agency or want to create one, come join my Facebook community, Get Your Agency Together, where we talk all the things growing and scaling your agency. For show notes and more info on all the things, head over to ReynoldsOBM.com. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Reynolds OBM. And finally, if you enjoy this podcast, I would love for you to give us a review on iTunes.